Hello and welcome back to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audio fiction. This is a miraculous fairy tale called Secrets Under the Moon, and this is chapter 7. So I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you haven't checked out the other chapters, they are linked below. And also a massive shout out and love to Arcataza for the beautiful, stunning commissioned artwork on the thumbnail. And make sure you go and send me some love by smashing that like button. Comment down below what you think of it and what will happen next. And make sure you subscribe because we have just hit 2,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And yeah, I'm just flabbergasted. And the word of the day. And so thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy. Chapter 7. The third alarm rang out on Marinette's phone. 4 a.m. Okay, Marinette, wake up. Fragment images of her dream flashed through her mind. Of the boy turned man, with those piercing green eyes, followed by the golden sunshine hair. Even the memory of the smile had melted. Wait, no. She shook her head. That's Felix. She had a dream about Felix? Why had he come to mind? She doesn't like Felix that way, surely? No, it wasn't possible. My mind simply jumped to the nearest person I know with green eyes. Cat isn't Felix. There is no way. I mean, I haven't seen Cat during the day, only at night, and it's not like he has told me anything about the magic, how it works, but no, it can't be, right? The fourth alarm went off. Okay, now is not the time to be thinking this crazy, ridiculous idea. The word brought forth an image of Chloe, causing an icy shiver to run down her back, followed by the image of the two of them together. If it was Felix, was it some sort of weird game they were playing with her? None of it made sense, none of it. She brushed her hand through the air, pushing the thoughts to the side. She needed to focus. Today was the first Monday she was opening the bakery by herself, and she still needed to place the breads in the oven and prep the croissants. She climbed into a pair of leggings and shoved on an oversized jumper, but her attention kept getting caught by the darkness of the skylight. Dawn was still a few hours away. Oh, but last night, how he had felt in her arms, the softness of his embrace. There was no way Felix could be like that. But why was he suddenly in her mind? Her phone buzzed beside her, dragging her out of her tangled thoughts, and saw her papa's face looking at her. She pressed on the message. I just wanted to wish you luck, and I know you've got this today. You'll do great. Marinette smiled. Her papa knew her so well. The small encouragement was all she needed to get her focus back on task, and how he couldn't help himself waking this early, knowing they were facing the quarterfinals themselves today. Thanks, Papa. Now sleep and get some rest. I've got this. Good luck for this morning. Marinette blew a kiss at the screen, grabbed her earbuds from the side of the bed, and pressed on the music app. With a very large coffee and an upbeat tempo blasting into her ears, the rest of the world began to fade away. She had been in the zone, filled all the orders, completed the task her papa said were essential, and breathed in the warm scent of fresh bread, knowing she was also wearing half of the mixture. But it was fine. She glanced down at the clock on her phone. The alarm to get ready had gotten lost in the beat, and now there was only 10 minutes until she had to open the doors. Oh, ginger snaps. She appeared around to the front of the shop, and sure enough, the 3 regulars were standing in the frosty air. Well, her mom wouldn't approve of her appearance, but Papa never minded. All that mattered was the bread, pastries, and the customers. Papa, today you win. She brushed back the loose hair with her forearm and straightened her apron, causing the huge jumper to billow out of the sides. After an hour and a steady stream of customers celebrating in the news that had filtered out from her parents' success at the competition, how they knew it was the best bakery and sure to win, Marinette leant against the counter and rubbed her aching cheeks from the constant smiling. I know that feeling. The difference between placing on a smile and the genuine one, but with you it's always the latter. Marinette spun round at the sudden voice behind her, not hearing the chime of the doorbell. Felix! Hello! Morning, I mean. She couldn't help studying his face. His eyes were green, but not that deep emerald she had come to like. His smile was genuine, but the one the face had held in her dream, there had been so much more behind it. Morning, Marinette. You have been busy this morning. He gestured to her look as a smirk ran across his lips. Oh, yeah, lost track of time. What with my parents? Yes, I wanted to wish them luck and congratulations. And whilst they are away, if there is anything you need or I can help with, don't hesitate to ask. He leaned in a little closer as his soft voice drew her in. He reached out his hand to her cheek and slid his thumb across. Sorry, you had some flour there. I mean it, Marinette. She felt her cheeks becoming rosy. What was happening to her? Felix didn't normally have this impact on her. What, are you going to get your suit mucky and help me bake? She teased, taking a step back. Yes, if you want me to. A sharp pain shot through the front of her head as an image of her and what looked like Felix decorating cookies, weaving his arm around her before kissing away some icing from her cheek, the same spot as the flower. She rubbed her hand against her forehead, taking a deep breath, waiting for the waves of pain to calm once more. She felt a hand lightly touch her shoulder. Marinette, what's wrong? Are you all right? Would you like some water? Here, take a seat. He gently guided her backwards towards the stool behind the counter and headed through to the back room, coming back with a glass of cold water. Here, drink this. Do you need a doctor? No, thank you. She saw concern in his face. Was this a glimpse of his truer self, or was it what he wanted her to see? I'm fine. I have just been getting some headaches over the past couple of days, and something shifted across his eyes that caused her to pause and remember who was in front of her. Too many late nights, I guess, and now early mornings. She took a mouthful of the water, placing the glass back on the counter. Thank you for your help, but just need more sleep, I guess. I will go and get your order. Don't want you to be late. She shot a nervous smile. This was all getting a tad too strange. It's all right if I'm late. I am the boss after all. He smirked at her. Do you need a hand? Nope. Back in a second. She slipped around him and darted through the back room. She let out a deep breath. Okay, hold it together. That, whatever it wasn't him. There was no way she had baked with Felix. Never mind the kiss on her cheek. Butterflies surged at the memory of it. But if it wasn't Felix, then who? How can they look like him and not be him? Here you go. She handed him the box, hoping he would take the hint and leave her alone with her knotted thoughts. We could always grab that coffee later, if you want. Or do you already have a date planned? His fingers purposely brushed against hers as he took the box. Marinette burst out laughing. Me? A date? Like who? Kitty sprang to mind, and how he had mentioned dropping by again tonight. No, nothing like that, and sorry, I'm too busy here for coffee. Thanks again. Her tone had shifted to a more formal one, hoping he would take the hint before she had to be blunt. I understand. In that case, I will see you tomorrow, Marinette, and I hope you feel better soon. He dropped his piercing gaze from her and turned away. Guilt ate at her insides, but she needed time and space to think, to figure out what all this meant. See you tomorrow, Felix. As soon as the door clicked shut, she let out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding in. But it wasn't possible, was it? Kitty was Felix? What transformed into cat at night? Was that part of the curse? But why? Why would anyone do that to him? I mean, stranger things had happened, but her gut was telling her it wasn't him. She couldn't believe that it was him under the transformation. The house, the tiny creatures, the way he had looked at her, not calculated like Felix usually was. So why had his face been in her dream? Her memory? The doorbell rang out, snapping her back into the present with another random customer, ordering treats from one of the shelves. The rest of the day repeated much of the same, an endless loop of customers and self-doubt, not only regarding her questionable sanity, but the daunting dress waiting for her. The only respite she got was when she needed to replenish the macaroons and discovered 2 passion fruits in the bakery fridge, which was strange to see. What if she combined them? The tang against the sugar and almonds could work. The results were better than she expected. The recipe, the measurements came to her like she knew it already. She locked up the shop and rolled her head from side to side. How did her papa do this? Day in, day out? Every part of her ached from her head to her toes, but yet she still had the dress to work on with less than a week until the gala. After a much-needed shower to rid her hair of dough and change of clothes into a simple pink skater dress, black tights, and a pair of stripy leg warmers she had knitted last year, she twisted her damp hair into a messy bun and glanced at the single red rose in the bottle on her desk. He had lost a few of its petals. Her design sheet now adorned with deep crimson circles like sands of time, wondering how many days until there were none left on the flower. A few hours had passed, lost in focus, tiny stitching and using the last of the clean silk before her order, hopefully fingers crossed, would come in tomorrow. So when a knock sounded on her skylight, Marinette jumped in surprise until she saw the emerald eyes shining down on her. A surge of giddiness sprang forth as she dashed up the ladder and opened the window. "Evening, Kitty." She poked her head through and saw a cheeky grin puffing out his whiskers. "I'm sorry, Marinette, to disturb you. You look busy. We can..." "Yes, we had plans." She dipped back inside and beckoned him in. "We can do it another..." He paused, glancing around the space, and a softness filtered across his face and into his eyes. "No, I want to. There are so many questions, and I get that you can't tell me certain things. It's not that I don't want to, I just can't, if that makes sense." She let out a burst of laughter. "Sorry, but none of this makes sense. The last couple of days..." "Yeah." He rubbed his claws through the back of his neck, ruffling his mane. "But in a good way." She turned and faced him with a shrug of her shoulders. "This past year, I don't know, I've been off, like something's been missing. Not that I'm saying..." Her face turned red as she brushed a loose piece of hair behind her ear. "I just feel like something is clicking." She looked up and found him standing beside her, looking at her with a glisten to his eyes. "I know what you mean." There was that blush again on his cheeks, exposing his human side of himself. Then something connected inside of her. "Is that how long?" She gestured at him. Kat answered with a nod. "Almost." He gave her a soft, sad smile. "Well, that just adds even more questions. Would you like a cup of tea? Juice? Milk?" She gave him a smirk, taking him by surprise, and laughed, lighting up his entire face. Actually, I would like to take you somewhere. He closed the gap again, reaching his clawed hand, gently to her cheek and brushed back the hair from her face. Will you trust me, princess? He breathed. Marinette stared down at the other hand while she felt the softness against her cheek. What was this pull she was feeling towards him? After all, she had only known for a few days, and yet he said he had known her longer, proved it with the story of the kitty, the image of Felix's face in her dreams. She had to go if she wanted answers. She nodded her head slowly and watched how his eyes, as they held a depth she could get lost into. Felix didn't have that. So where are you taking me? She grabbed her oversized cardigan from the back of the desk chair. Oh, it's a surprise. I thought we could take a walk, and if you don't mind, I know the shadows so that no one sees me. He rubbed the back of his neck and caused a ruff of his mane to stick out. Oh, I don't mind. She had thought for a moment that it had been for her benefit, but perhaps it was for him. Yeah, it's not like I can run across the rooftops, is it? She chuckled and gave him a playful smile. Why was it easy with him? I would love to see you try. He grinned back. She remembered the macaroons she had made earlier. Shall we go out this way? Gesturing to the trapdoor. I just need to grab something on the way out. She picked up her larger over-the-shoulder bag and flung it over her head. He descended the stairs first. She waited to make sure not to step on his tail. He has an actual tail, a cat tail. Seeing it from behind in the full light, watching it flick slightly as he walked. How did that work? What must that be like? She couldn't help to stare, but when he turned and caught her, her eyes darted anywhere but there. He paused in the middle of the living space, waiting for her to join him. His face shifted from a smile to a sorrow as his hand glided across some of the furniture, almost like he was saying something to it. Hello? Goodbye? I miss you. The magnetic force pulled her towards him as she placed a hand on his shoulder, giving it a gentle rub. He spun round, her hand gliding from his back to his front over his chest as she wrapped both arms around her, hugging her. Oh, it felt so good, just like last night had done, like a form of peace washed over her. I've missed you, he muttered into her ear, barely audible over the soft purring emitting out of his chest. I don't know how, but it feels like I've missed you too. She whispered back and felt his arms tighter around her. She closed her eyes, relaxing into the embrace as another searing pain saw through her forehead and again was greeted by Felix's face. She shuffled out of his hold, wincing at the pain and giving her head a rub. What's wrong? Are you okay? Is it another headache? He peered at her as she couldn't help shooting him a questioning look. I'm fine. She picked up her keys from the side and held the door open for him. He waited at the back door as she dashed into the back baking rooms and picked up a box of the passion fruit macaroons, placing them into her bag for later. They walked side by side, her hand clinging to the strap of her bag, ignoring the yearning to hold his, which was shifting from his pocket to his side to his hair. She tried to think of the mountain of questions which had been forming in her mind, but at that moment, not even one popped into her head. How was that possible? Instead, it felt like all her strength was placed into her body and resisted the need to wrap an arm around his waist, to place her head into that nook on his chest as his arm enveloped her, pulling her in tighter. But how was that possible? To yearn someone like that, when you don't know who they are? They walked for a while, silently through the streets until he broke it. I saw some of your designs in your room and the mannequin. What are you working on? He said, staring at the ground and his hand rammed into his pocket. It's actually for a gala that's taking place. Have you heard of the Aggress brand? I mean, of course you have. His eyes suddenly shot up and held hers. I don't think there is anyone who hasn't heard of the Aggress, especially in Paris. She shrugged her shoulders as he looked back at the pavement. Anyway, they are having a showcase. I gained entry to compete for a place on their program. I mean, I wanted to attend design school, but somehow that didn't come to be. And so if I gain a place on the program, it's the next best thing, really. That is, if I'm good enough. Her fingers nervously fiddled with her strap, her stepping slowing down. Can I be honest with you? He stopped and nodded at her. I just feel like I'm wandering through fog in my mind. Nothing seems right at the moment. No, that's not true. For the past year. It's like something has shifted from where it should have been, and now nothing seems to slot into place. Oh, does that even make sense? Or is it just my rambles? She gave him a nervous giggle and noticed that his hands were wrapped around hers. I'm so sorry you feel like that, Marinette. It's not fair to you. To go through that. He kept moving his mouth to speak more, but instead there was only silence, followed by a sigh and his eyes hitting the ground. He took a deep breath. If it helps, I have always loved your rambles. She gave his fingers a light squeeze. Really? You would be the only one. His eyes caught hers once more as she gave her bottom lip a slight tug with her teeth. He shifted on the spot, moving closer and then instantly moving back again as his hands fell from hers. Yeah, and the Aggress brand would be lucky to have you in their program. Have a little more faith in yourself. He appeared at her from the side, smiling at the blush that was now forming on her cheeks. It's not far now, just round the corner. Thanks. There is actually one of them that comes into the bakery. Wait, are we going to the Science Museum? Kat suddenly stopped on the spot and stared at her. One of who comes to the bakery? She studied his face. Why this alarm in his eyes? Felix Aggress? I went to school with him. But there wasn't the revelation she had expected to see, but more of concern, possibly anger. He comes in most mornings to pick up a large order to take to the office. It's actually nice of him to do that for his staff. Kat opened his mouth wide as if he was shouting, but again there was only silence. He stepped back from her and hissed or growled, a blend of the two. Had she gotten too close to the truth? The curse was now stopping him from confirming it. Should she tell him she keeps seeing Felix's face, or would that cause even more problems? Maybe changing the subject would be for the best. So, Science Museum? It is a lovely building, but it's shut. What are we doing here? Kitty? She watched as her nickname for him brought him back round to her, and his eyes softened again. Well, I have managed to gain access for the night. There is something I want to show you. He grinned at what she presumed was a worried look flashing across her face. All safe, above board, and trust me. He held his hand out to her. She slid her fingers through the gap of his, the fur tickling her skin slightly. She allowed him to guide her around the building and through a side door. She hadn't been since a school trip, almost 5 years ago now, led by Mrs. Mendeleev. But it hadn't changed all that much, apart from a few additional attractions hoping to gain new customers. Kat seemed to know where he was going, leading her down a corridor. How on earth? She chuckled at her own internal pun as they passed the solar system diagram. Had Kitty pulled this off? Allowing them in after closing time and by themselves? Then realization hit her as they passed the sign for the planetarium. Kitty, are we going in there? But why? You talked about not seeing the stars in Paris, and this place happens to have a special show on right now. Plus, Loire Valley. She stopped at the words and stared at him. How? How do you know? You? Was it you? I might not be able to tell you directly of our past, it seems, but I might be able to show you or answer some of your questions. Please? He encouraged her forward and opened the double doors. They weaved down the central aisle and saw a picnic blanket set up on the ground with a basket of goodies on display. You wait here. I just need to press play. Not everything is run by magic, he said with a schoolboy grin that warmed her heart. What was she doing? What was he doing? Had she stumbled onto a date with her kitty? Did she want it to be one, after only a few nights of knowing each other and the confusing thought of Felix? But this also felt nice, and oh, how much time and effort he had placed into this. He bounced back towards her and took a seat close by. Even in the low lights issued from the stars above their heads, she could tell he was blushing and knew she was too. Kat selected a few treats from the basket when she remembered the macaroons from her bag. She pulled out the box and held it out in front of her. I brought these. I don't know why, but I made them today. They are a one-off. Passion fruit flavor? I know it sounds strange, but they... Her words filtered off as she got lost in the stare Kitty was giving her. You made passion fruit macaroons? Why? He whispered. Have you tried them before? Do you not like them? You've made them before. They are my favorite. Really? I don't remember making them before. Marinette sighed and lowered her eyes to the box still outstretched. Kitty, why don't I remember? Why don't I remember you? And the time we spent together before? Why can't you tell me your name or why you are? She gestured to him. Kitty, why does the world suddenly feel like it makes sense again when I'm next to you? But I'm also scared. He gently removed the box from her hands and replaced it with his own. I wish with all my heart, Princess, I could tell you, and I understand how this can be scary for you, for us both. How about for now, I tell you a story? She looked up at him and saw that soft gaze and warm smile, encouraging her closer next to him. Laying back on the blanket, she automatically nestled into the nook of his arm and rested her head on his chest, relishing in his warmth. He pointed his hand out to the stars above them. This is what you could see in the night sky right now above Paris, if it wasn't for the lights. And you see that selection of stars there? She nodded her head and he let out a happy sigh. Well, the story goes. Queen Andromeda claimed to be more beautiful than all of Poseidon's daughters. Angry at the sight, Poseidon sent a great sea monster, Cetus, to destroy the kingdom's ships and torment their coastal villages. The king and queen decided that the only way to appease the angry sea king was to offer their only daughter, Cassiopeia, as a sacrifice to the monster. The princess was chained to a great rock far out to sea to await her fate in the monster's jaws. For a moment, Marinette felt like she was floating amongst the stars with her kitty as her anchored to earth as she listened to him continue. Now Perseus was an outcast prince who had been tasked with killing the Gorgon, whose face could turn men to stone. He'd been gifted with winged sandals, a magic helmet, and a mirror shield of Athenia, with which he defeated the Gorgon, mounting the horrible head on the shield. He was flying home after his victory when he spied the beautiful maiden chained to a rock. Her dress was as white as a sea spray, and her eyes were as blue as the sky. Seeing Cetus rising from the waves to devour her, Perseus turned the Gorgon's head on the noble beast and turned it to stone. With his sword he broke the chain that bound Cassiopeia to the rock and carried her away to treasure her forever. Marinette finished the story and turned to face him as he placed his hand over her cheek. The Loire Valley? It was you, wasn't it? You've told me that story before. His thumb grazed across her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Princess, you remember? Kitty inched his face closer to her. She had thought for a moment she could, but something pulled her back, stopping her. Her mind had more questions than before. If it was him in her memories, was it also his face? Which meant, was this Felix? The thought caused her to jump backwards. I'm sorry, I can't. I have to go. Before he could grab her hand, she jumped to her feet, snatching her bag and ran, ignoring the tears rolling down her face and the sensation of her heart shattering into tiny pieces. Marinette, please! Kat called out behind her. She lay looking up at the stars. Whispers filtered amongst the wind flowing through the tall grass, with the singing crickets as a lovely counterpoint to the contentment she felt. The air was cool and crisp, but someone taller lay immediately behind her, sheltering her from the light breeze, powerful arms wrapped round her. A shooting star arched across the sky, and one arm released her to point upwards. There! A soft, familiar voice whispered, Make a wish! She rolled so she could see his face, but with the firelight behind them, his shaggy hair hid his warm, loving shadows, but she could see his eyes. They were as green as the forest and with just as much life in them. I don't need to. I already have everything I wanted, she said, running the fingers of one hand through his hair. The starlight showed her the sharp pains of his face, and she jerked away in surprise. Is something wrong, Marinette? Felix asked, eyes wide and full of gentle concern, eyes that weren't his. How could that be? Somehow she knew what he was going to say. You know, you're my everything, don't you? I would give you the world if you wanted it. He leaned in, running his fingers along her cheek and back into her hair. Ask me for anything, Marinette. No, she cried in her mind, rejecting his touch, but could not pull away as he closed the gap between them. Felix, I don't care about you this way. I never have. This isn't right. I love... But no name came to her lips. All she could see were green eyes full with love. All she felt was a soft touch against her cheek. There was no one who she loved. No one who loved her. It was enough to bring tears of hopelessness to her eyes, but this kiss was... Somewhere in the shadows of the night, someone or something cried out in utter despair. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you smash that like button. Comment down below what you thought of it and what will happen next in chapter 8, which will be coming soon. Sorry, this is I put 2 chapters into one because I wanted to make this one a longer one. So the chapter 8 will be coming soon. And yeah, make sure you subscribe. And thank you so much to everyone who has already subscribed. 2,000 is just mind-blowing. It's mental, it's crazy, and it means the world to me. So thank you so much, and I hope you are good. I wish you all well, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.